Hello everyone, welcome to the final video of this course where we'll be taking a look at how to automate pretty much everything we've done. So passive and active information gathering and enumeration with regards to the web with OWASP Amass. All right, so the question is, why would we want to do this? Well, as you've already been able to tell, a lot of what we've done has taken a lot of time, and you might be a little bit confused as to what tools to use because I've covered many tools, even for specific techniques. However, there's a very important reason why I did that and why I wanted to explain everything manually and then show you how to utilize an automated tool like OWASP Amass to automate everything. Primarily because if you try and automate things before you understand how they can be done manually, you'll not really understand what's going on in the background and you'll not understand the context. So if you utilize something like Amass can be used in both contexts. The contexts I'm describing here are both active and passive enumeration or information gathering. And if you're not aware of that, you can actually run OWASP Amass in active mode, whereas you may not have permission to do that yet. So again, if I did not go through all of these techniques manually, there's not enough context for you to properly understand and value a tool like Amass. Amass is an automation tool, and it's also a reporting tool, which means you can actually generate very snazzy looking reports that you can then include in your final web app pen testing report or even some of your bug bounty hunting assessments. So in this particular case, we'll be taking a look at a couple of examples. We'll take a look at how to use it actively and passively for reconnaissance and enumeration. So we'll take a look at a couple of examples of how to, for example, enumerate subdomains, so on and so forth. And in this case, there is no lab environment. I'm going to be showcasing this on my own Kali Linux system, primarily because we'll be targeting public sites, or we'll be running the tests on public sites. So you can follow along if you have your own Kali Linux system, or you can watch this video and then get started after. So I'm going to switch over to my Kali Linux system and we can get started. So I'll see you there. All right, so I'm back on my Kali Linux system, as you can see here. And the first thing, of course, is to get Amass installed. Before I do that, you can learn more about the tool by taking a look at the GitHub repo, the official GitHub repo right over here. And Amass is a phenomenal tool. So I'll just give you an introduction to it. The GitHub repo really does it a lot of service. So the OWASP Amass project performs network mapping of attack surfaces and external asset discovery using open source information gathering and active reconnaissance techniques. So these are the information gathering techniques utilized, and installing it is very easy on Kali because it's part of the repo. So I'll just walk you through it. So, it's very simple: sudo apt-get install Amass. Very, very simple. And I'll, just put in my password and we already have it installed. So using Amass is equally as simple. You just need to understand how it works. All right. More specifically, right over here, you can see you can bring up the help menu, which we've done. However, the subcommands is where a lot of people get confused, right? So the subcommands define what you're using Amass to do. So you can see that we have intel, which allows you to discover targets for enumeration, which is not really what we're interested in, but we have the enum subcommand, which allows you to perform enumeration and network mapping. And then you have the viz subcommand, which we'll be using to visualize enumeration results in the form of a report. And you can also use track to track the differences between enumerations. We're not really going to be exploring that. You also have db, which allows you to manipulate the Amass graph database. So let's take a look at some passive subdomain enumeration with Amass. We can easily do that by saying Amass, and I'll just clear my terminal here. So I'll say Amass, and we're going to say enum, and then we can specify the domain as, something like zonetransfer.me, which we've done previously. And I just want to show you what this looks like. While that's running, let me just minimize this here really quickly, and I'll bring this up. And we're going to give this a couple of seconds to complete because a lot of checks are going to be performed. Taking you back to the help options, right over here, you can actually get additional options for a particular subcommand, but the main options are, you specify the subcommand, and then the options where you can specify the, who is information if you want to look out for that, and also the actual domain itself, which I did not cover, but that can be done as well. So I'm just going to give this a couple of seconds to complete. Once it's done, I'm going to show you how you can also enumerate subdomain IP addresses and also the sources, just so that is known, and also how to export your results into a particular directory, which we'll then use to essentially visualize with the viz subcommand. So I'm just going to wait for this to complete, and then I'll catch up with you once this is done. And then we'll also talk about active subdomain enumeration, and I'm using a couple of very useful examples here. So I'll get back to you once this is done. Actually, hold on. Looks like we're able to identify all of this. So we're able to identify a couple of subdomains here. So yeah, I'll just wait for this to complete. All right, so the scan has been running for some time now, and you can see we're able to enumerate quite a few subdomains here. So I'm just going to terminate this current scan here. And the reason for that is because I also want to showcase how you can also output results, and we'll return back to this shortly. But if we wanted, for example, for the same site, and again, in this particular case, if we just opened up the actual help menu here really quickly, I just want to cover something else as well. Whenever you're running a particular subcommand, and in this particular case, right over here, if we take a look at the enum subcommand, you can see that we can actually open up the help menu for that particular subcommand here. And what I wanted to highlight is the ability to perform passive, or to specify exclusively that you want to perform a passive, in this case, subdomain enumeration. So if we take the example that we had used previously, where we say, for example, Amass here, and I'll combine this and say enum. And in this case, we will say we want to perform this passively, because that's one of the things that I didn't highlight, but this can be specified exclusively or explicitly. So we can say passive, and then the domain is, zone transfer.me. I'll just hit enter. And this is now going to utilize, passive information gathering and enumeration, because when we ran it previously, it was actually performing a brute force. Now, that's something that I did not mention, primarily because I forgot to point out the fact that you can actually specify that explicitly, but I'll show you where the differences come into play, and some of the options, the additional options or flags you can specify when utilizing Amass, and of course how to output your results into a directory for visualization later on. So we've already taken a look at, we can say, active subdomain enumeration with Amass, but we can also specify that explicitly, and that's what I wanted to highlight. So again, just going to wait for this to complete. All right, so that is completed now using passive info gathering. So you can see all of the subdomains discovered. And in this case, we do not explicitly say that we wanted to essentially save it or save the results to a particular directory. So we can actually take a look at how to do that now. So I'm going to create a new directory here called, we'll just call it ZT. So just an abbreviation for zone transfer.me or ZTME. There we are. So we can run the previous command, and now we can also specify that we want additional information, like to display the sources, the IP addresses of the subdomains, as well as the fact that we want to save it under, so dir, and we're going to say home, Kali, and desktop, and we're then going to save it to ZTME or ZTME, like so, and we're then going to hit enter. And in this case, yeah, because we're performing passive DNS resolution, or in this case, because we're utilizing passive, we're utilizing the passive flag, we can get rid of the IP option. That only becomes applicable once we're doing this actively. Yeah, just gonna wait for this to complete again. And then, of course, if you wanted to do it actively, and I'll open up another terminal just to show you what that looks like. So there we are. Just open up another one here. Just wait for that to start up. And there we go. So if you wanted to do it actively and specify that you wanted to do or you wanted to perform active subdomain enumeration, what you can do is, I'm just going to open up bash here. So I'm going to say Amass enum, and then we can say zone transfer .me. I'll just zoom in a little bit here. We can now say source and also display the actual IP addresses, and we can then explicitly say we want to perform a subdomain brute force and then specify where we want to save that. So what we can do is, let's create another directory, and I'll just say navigate to my desktop here, and I'll say make directory, we're just going to call this zone transfer.me, and we're just going to say brute. All right, and there we go. Sorry, that is make directory, not what I typed in. There we are. So we're just going to say amass enum zone transfer.me and source and IP, and then we explicitly say we want to perform a brute force, subdomain brute force, and then the directory is going to be under home Kali desktop and ztme underscore brute. All right, so I'll hit enter. So now we have two scans running in parallel, and in this case you can see that it actually displays the source where it found it from. So in this case the sources are very, very useful, so Alien Vault, DNS Spy, so on and so forth. So that's passive subdomain enumeration, and while the active or rather the subdomain brute force is actually being processed or is currently running, what we can do is we can take a look at a couple of other examples, like automating passive reconnaissance, which in this particular case we already have done, but yeah, we actually have taken a look at how to do it. But we can also automate specifically active reconnaissance with Amass, and this is where we now utilize the intel subcommand. So that can be done by saying amass intel and then the actual domain, so zone transfer.me, and we can then say, you know, that we want this to be active. And the same thing can be done for intel. We can also switch it to passive, but let's say we also want to display the source and IP addresses and the directory. Should we create a new directory for that? Yeah, let's just call it ztme intel, and we'll also say amass intel and then zone transfer.me active source and IP we want displayed, and then the directory is going to be home Kali desktop ztme, and we're going to say intel, intel, there we are. And in this case, let's see, we're getting an error here. Let's see, just gives us the usage instructions. That's interesting. So with regards to intel, yes, we are using the active technique here, and we're specifying the source and IP. Amass intel D, that is correct. Zone transfer.me active, which is highlighted here, so that'll attempt certificate name grabs. That's very interesting that that's not working, but source, and we also specify the IP. Let's get rid of these two here. I think that's what's causing the issue, or it may not be, but yeah, it seems like we're getting this same issue here. Active source IP, and then the directory here is specified, so home Kali desktop. Yeah, that makes sense. What if we actually get rid of this active flag here? All right, so I forgot to specify the who is option correctly. So we want to say amass intel active who is, and then, you know, we can specify that we want to export it to home Kali desktop and ZTME underscore Intel. There we are. And that is going to utilize the Intel subcommand. So in the background, we also have the subdomain brute force going on. And actually, once the Intel is done, we are actually going to try and see how to essentially generate an Amass report using the viz subcommand, just to show you how that works. And we can actually do it right now because we have successfully performed one of them, but you can actually see that this is indeed working here. So this is utilizing the Intel subcommand here. So we're essentially automating active reconnaissance. And now this is specifically, if we open up the Amass documentation, so Amass and help, the Intel subcommand, which I really didn't want to use, was essentially used to discover targets for enumeration. So specifically for target discovery, this allows you to enumerate and perform network mapping. So what we're going to do now is we can take a look at the first example. Well, that's actually done, so we can do that in that terminal. I don't know whether we're going to wait for this to complete because it's going to take quite a while as we're performing a subdomain brute force. But what we can do is we can say Amass and then viz. We specify the directory where the report is stored. So in this case, home, Kali, desktop, and we can then say ZTME right over here. And we then specify the report type, so D3 right over here. So D3 will essentially be a JavaScript version 4.4 simulation HTML report. And, we can then just hit enter, sorry, not DR, but D3. And let's take a look and see whether that was done. So under ZTME, which is where we perform passive subdomain enumeration, we have the HTML file here. So let's see what this looks like. And this should be the HTML report. So this is one of the reports you can generate here. And in this case, you can see that we have all the subdomains displayed here. So robin.zonetransfer.me, etc. What you can also do is if we say, Amass viz help, just to show you the other types of reports you can generate, you have D3. You also have the D value. So this will be domains, domain name separated by commas. And you also have the .output file. You can also output that into that. Also, you can also generate a graph history JSON file, generate a GEPHI, graph exchange XML format, and the other output format is, yes, there we are. So that's you can actually generate the Multigo CSV file if you want to import it into Multigo. But yeah, you can generate these really cool reports. Let's see if I can open that up. No, we want this window here. So there we go. That's how to generate reports with the viz subcommand. So there's a lot that you can do with OWASP Amass. I just wanted to take you through a few examples of how you can utilize Amass to automate pretty much most of what we've done. So do take a look at it in your own time. Another automation framework you can utilize is Sniper, which is also very, very useful. And you can actually learn a lot from that. But another good report that we can also visualize is probably the Intel. So we can run the previous command and ZTME and let's say Intel, hit enter. Interesting, that failed. The brute is still running, so that will probably fail. But yes, once this is done, you'll be able to visualize it. You can just generate the report and you can generate any report you want. So with that being said, that is going to conclude the practical demonstration side of this video. And I'll be seeing you in the conclusion video. So let me switch back over to the slides. All right, so that concludes all the content for this particular course. Hopefully you've learned a lot, and now that we've completed all of the modules, we can now take or move on to the conclusion, where we'll be taking a look at whether we've hit all of our learning objectives. And this will also be very useful for you. So with that being said, I am going to be seeing you in the conclusion video.